there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is none other than Peter Askew, a longtime domain developer and serial entrepreneur of a growing number of lucrative domain development efforts, such as duderanch.com, fideliaonions.com, and birthdayparties.com, to name a few. In today's episode, Peter and I discuss how a startup launched his domain development journey, his failed domain development attempts and what he learned from each one, how he developed and sold duderanch.com and geodomain brevard.com, his current projects, fideliaonions.com and birthdayparties.com, and last but not least, his criteria for assessing whether or not a domain is development worthy. So, with that, Peter, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Alvin, thank you for having me on, man.
Certainly. So, quick backstory here for the listeners. So, my wife and I crossed paths with Peter while attending Rick Schwartz's first annual domain investor meetup held in Asheville, North Carolina. And while it was a small group of domain investors and developers in attendance, like in comparison to a traditional industry conference like NamesCon, Peter and I, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to catch up or meet one another. So that all changes today, though. So, and I'm excited to chat with Peter and have you listeners along for the ride. So to kick things off, Peter, man, briefly share with our listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your professional and personal background.
Oh, geez. Let's see. Based in Atlanta, born and raised in Atlanta. So I had a short drive. Yeah, so I had a short drive up to Asheville, which was very convenient for Rick's meetup. But got into the online kind of game. Let's see, during the .com boom in the late '90s. But even taking a step back from that, but grew up in Atlanta, went to school at Ole Miss. Graduating in the mid-'90s, really had no direction or real clue on what type of career. This is really pre-internet. This is mid-'90s, and thought the movie industry was going to be my first industry or first career choice. Gave that a shot, and quickly learned I didn't have as much interest as I initially thought I did in that industry. But lived in New York City for that, and lived in Los Angeles for that, and then ended up coming back to Atlanta and working in like small business. My brother ran a small business here in Atlanta. So I started getting more exposure just into just small business, how to open a business, how to operate a business, how to run inventory, how to pay salaries, how to pay taxes, how to keep the customers happy. And I found I actually enjoyed that. And I never had any type of exposure to that in college. I had a history degree from Ole Miss. And so then I started doing this business stuff, and I was like, I'm such an idiot. I didn't take a single business class in college. I didn't take a single coding class, not that they had many in the early '90s, but never took any type of coding classes. But I was like, this small business stuff is kind of cool. But I kept wandering around, and after I got back to that, and my brother, same guy I was working for, he actually invested in a small startup here in Atlanta called eTour, etour.com. And at that time, I had stopped working for him, and I was trying out the advertising industry, and they had plugged me into the internet. This was mid to late '90s. And once, so he invested in the startup, and just in passing one day mentioned that, he invested a few $1,000 in the startup, and they were dying for employees. And then it hit me. I was like, are you telling me that I could get a job, messing around on the internet all day long? And I was like, sign me up, because they had plugged me in, and I was learning how to use emails. I was trying to understand what this browser was and how you visited a website. And so I hounded eTour because I had an advertising background, and their product was an advertising product.
Right.
Their service was like a slideshow of the internet matched to your interest. So you'd indicate your interest, and then you'd have this big orange next site button that you'd click, and they would basically give you a slideshow of the internet through your browser. And it was highly relevant. And then we would insert ads into the rotation. And so I was able to pitch them saying, hey, I have an advertising background, but no one has internet experience at this point. So I was just trying to translate. I have ad experience from TV and radio and print, and I can cut and paste that over to the internet and and move my knowledge set over here. And so I hounded them enough; they agreed to give me the job there. So that just got me into the online world, and then from there, I just started trying to feel my way around on how does this world work, and overwhelming at points, but like a wonderful overwhelming. Trying to understand. I always remember in the early days, I always was confused on like, where does the website live? Is it here in our office? And they were trying to explain to me, that they had this host. I think we were using level 3 back then, that, we had this host that was in another building. Actually, it was somewhat close by. And we could walk over there to the actual servers in the server room. So I was like, okay, so there's this other computer. That's where our site lives. It's not in the office here with us. It's down the road. It's in this other place. Has lots of refrigeration, a lot of moving air to keep the servers cool. And so yeah, from that, to database, and then to the graphic design aspect, and then the advertising component, and then being a product manager, how to build a product around this advertising service so we could add these websites into our rotation on the site. So I was fortunate to be able to build the entire advertising platform within eTour to, how does it look? How does it feel? How does it integrate with the database? How does it push and pull information? How do we turn ads on and off? So just a really good exposure on that.
Interesting. So then you really got kind of the A to Z experience of the right time, the right place, at really when the internet was birthed, that you rode this wave in to what we know now.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun, but I did get laid off from that. So I made it through. So they did the typical startup story back then. I can't remember how much we raised, or at least the company raised. I don't remember. It was like 30 or 40 million, something like that. And the company was highly profitable with about 30 employees. But from what I understood, they wanted to go public, and the magic number back in those days was 300 employees. You needed 300. That was the magic number that growing companies needed to have in order to appear legitimate and to get funding and to have a successful IPO. So they were desperate. They were trying to get to this rough number and hire enough people to I guess to take care of the advertising product itself, and to position our company to eventually have an IPO. But 300 employees starts dragging against your investment pretty quick. And so I made it because I was so closely tied to the advertising product. I was the one person at the company that managed the advertising product. And I made sure to get as close as I could to that to avoid layoffs. So I made it through basically all the layoffs until they sold all the assets. I think it was the third round that I got laid off. But after that, they sold all the assets to AskG's, and basically shut down our Atlanta office. And then most of the remaining folks ended up going over to AskG's. Actually, one of our VPs ended up being the CEO of Ask for several years. He's over at CBS, Jim Lanzone. He's over. Yeah. So he's actually, I think he's the CEO of, last I checked, CBS Interactive.
Right.
But yeah, so that was the experience was wonderful. But then once I got laid off and I realized I was in many ways just a number in the company, and that all my loyalty and everything I had done for the company wasn't even enough to save my job. It truly put me on a plane where I understood that I needed to look out for myself, that I can't rely on a third party or a company for my salary and for my own well-being. And so at that point, I was like, I need to start learning out how to do this stuff myself, because I need to pay myself my own salary. I cannot rely on a third-party company to rely on, just my livelihood. And so that slowly started putting me down the path of, okay, what do I need to do now? And that put me down and started pushing me into paid search,
Mm-hmm.
analytics, just web analytics, and then eventually SEO as well. And then from those three, so I started doing some of those types of jobs. I worked at Auto Trader here in Atlanta, and then a few other smaller companies that provided public records on the internet, and started doing heavy paid search for them, and started seeing the impact of paid search, just paid search outside of SEO. And at one point for this public records company, we were spending $1 and making $3 on just information. So there was no product to package up and ship out. We were just sharing information, and I was promoting it through Google AdWords. Was pretty much that and Overture, and Find What was another old one. Canoodle was another old one we were advertising through. Yeah, and you put me back on track if I'm wandering off your topic.
So let me ask you this, because obviously you mentioned some things that to younger listeners, they go, Ask Jeeves, what in the world is that? And so
yes, yeah, good question. Yeah, so another early search engine and this was really before Google, and Google started taking over market share. Their entire perspective was that you were asking a question to this butler on their website, and his name was Jeeves. And so you would go, rather than searching flowers, they always encouraged users to write a really specific search query to say, I need flowers in the Atlanta area in zip code 30305. Something that we almost do naturally now within a Google search. But back in those days, folks they tended to search, maybe on Google, they would search really broad-based terms. They would just type flowers and try to find some local flowers. But Ask Jeeves almost encouraged them to write these really long tail, really specific search queries, and then they would try to match the search query. So yeah, it's basically, but to answer your question, another search engine. Gotcha. And early that, it was, Lycos, Alta Vista. I mean, Google had come in 98, 99. And yeah, Alta Vista was a big one. Yahoo was massive in those days. But yes, another search engine, essentially.
Gotcha. So then, as so going from eTour to Auto Trader, so how did you actually get into, I guess, domain investing or development?
So once I was in paid search and analytics, I started dipping my toe into the SEO world, because I kept looking at the search engine results, and 50% of the page was paid search, and then the other organic results were just the SEO side. And in order to get sites ranked for SEO, you've had to build a site and operate a site. And so, since I was having some level of success within paid search, I thought it might be in my best interest to learn how to build a site and then figure out how to properly get a site ranked within the organic aspect, because I was seeing how effective paid search was. So I just assumed SEO would be equally as effective. So if I had more exposure into SEO, it might be just another good skill set for me to add to my back pocket. So once I started digging into SEO, I just realized, okay, I just need to learn how to build a site. Let's build a site, and let's see if I can get it ranking for a specific term or phrase. So that started putting me down. And then it was, how do I build a website? What is it? And so I started building just very rudimentary sites on, I'd just get a table. I'd actually go to other people's website, view the source, grab the source, and then put it into some sort of, code editor, and then change, some of the content. Most of the time it was just like a table. So I'd go in there and change the table header or the table dimension and change the content, and then realize, okay, this table has, 2 columns. I need 3 columns. How do I add a 3rd column? So, and I'd change small things, and it'd break, and then I'd have to go back and change it and try to identify what did I do to break that. I didn't necessarily. I sort of read books, but I tend to enjoy learning how to swim when I'm in the water. So I enjoy just getting the code and just monkeying with the code. I want the background to look a different color. How do I change the background? I have no idea. Maybe I want to change the color for a specific row. How do I do that? So that put me down the development path on how does this work? Where do I host a website? How do you get a domain name? How do I get this site built and ranked for a specific term? And then that really started putting me down the development path, and I started enjoying it because it started feeding into almost my arts and crafts. Like it felt like arts and crafts. It was just like a fun experiment to do.
Gotcha.
And very tangible. You get to see this physical result of your work through either code or graphic design. But once I started building my own websites, it's a slow. It takes a long time to build and eventually develop a website. It's very time consuming, and so I was
especially back then.
Yeah, and so I kept asking myself, sort of, I was like, well, how do I speed this process up? I was like, well, what if I just bought somebody else's website that ranks for a specific term that I might be interested in? And so I was like, well, how does that work? How do I buy a website? And so I started looking and buying a few websites here and there. And
do you recall which ones your first purchases or?
Actually, this was more of a domain name as well. So I ended up buying AppalachianTrail.com was one that I bought. Yeah. So based on that hiking trail, if it starts in Georgia and goes, I think it ends in Maine, if I'm correct. I own the domain. I think it's correct. I think it ends in Maine. So I bought it direct. I cold emailed the owner. He didn't respond to me for like a month, then randomly responded back, and I offered him a few $1,000 for it. And he had a very simple site, and he did not have AdSense on it. So I bought it from him and then added a few more pages of content. And at that point,
I already ranking?
I think it was roughly ranking for a few terms. And so I rebuilt it and then just did some of the basics of SEO, made the title tags a little bit more descriptive. I knew a lot of people were looking for specific maps, so I was adding maps to the site to make it more helpful as somebody's searching for a specific map of the Georgia section of the Appalachian Trail, or the North Carolina section, or Virginia, and try to make it more helpful for anyone who is planning the trip. And that one just happened to be a really, really good domain name as well. And so that was one example where I saw the power of a really good domain name and a good developed site as well. And I just happened to have acquired it. And so I acquired it, and it started just with AdSense, generating, $5 or $10 a day for me within AdSense. Nice. Yeah. So I was like, wow, this is pretty fascinating. And, AdSense will just direct deposit the money into your bank account. And this was entirely on the side. So I was still working a 9 to 5 and just doing domaining and development, nights and weekends.
Right.
And still each time you build and develop, you just get a little bit better at coding, a little bit more exposure to another aspect of the web. And the web changes so much. It's always trying just to stay on top of anything's changing. So at this point, WordPress was getting more popular. So I think at some point I moved the site over to WordPress just to make it a little bit easier to manage and maintain. But I was interested in buying, acquiring a few more websites, and buying a website from someone else direct is a very time consuming and difficult process because you have to, authenticate yourself, because it's a lot of website owners get a lot of emails. So it's tough to
kind of
position yourself. Yeah, differentiate, or even just to sound legitimate coming through email. So I wasn't having enough deal flow through site acquisitions. And then I kept, as I kept buying, onesie twosie websites every now and then, I slowly kind of kept coming back to the domain name. And I realized if I bought a site, the first thing I needed to do was get the domain name from the other owner. Even if they didn't give me the site content, I could still pull the site content from, a snapshot in archive.org or through other methods. But as long as I had that domain name, I controlled everything. And so I kept coming back to the domain name. I was like, well, how do I buy more domains? So that started getting me into the expiration world where, every day 50 to 100,000 domains are expiring. And if you can find, certain methods to scrape or sift through all those domains looking for a diamond in the rough, you can have a whole lot more volume. Every single day there's an opportunity out there to buy a good domain name. So that started putting me down the development, or at least the acquisition side on domain names, and then just waiting for a domain to expire that that struck my interest. And so the Appalachian Trail one is a good one to mention because I sold it. Latona, you remember Rick Latona? He actually bought it from me for $30,000, and I used that investment to buy one of my first bigger acquisitions was DudeRanch.com. So I sold Latona, AppalachianTrail.com for 30. I think I bought it for 3 roughly.
Wow.
So I had that sale, and I'm still doing this on the side with my 9 to 5. And so I bought Dude Ranch for 18,000 roughly, and it was a full expiration drop. It dropped at Snap Names. And I bought it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it when I saw that it had expired. I wanted to build just a good, directory marketplace of Dude Ranch vacations and drive them leads. I sit in the middle. I'll make it somewhat easy for vacation seekers to identify a ranch that might meet their needs for their family vacation. And then I can drive those leads to the Dude Ranches, and the Dude Ranches would be my customer, where they would pay me a yearly fee to be included on the site and help drive them leads and bookings. And it was a great industry just because the lead value is so high. It's a typical family of 4 vacation to a Dude Ranch for 6 days or a week is on the lower side is around $10,000. So it's a really good high value lead that I can drive over. And if I can just drive each ranch, 1 lead per year, it would easily satisfy my, $500 to $1,000 listing fee for the website. So that kind of moved me into the dude ranching industry. And then I put everything on WordPress on it. And at that point I had a fairly good exposure to WordPress.
So wait, was it that, what was it? Appalachian
Trail.
So was that your only domain development effort at that moment that kind of jumped you from Appalachian Trail to Dude Ranch? Or, did you have others that were in between?
I had a few others. Like one of the first sites where I just built and learned how to code was called Planet B&B, and it was a similar directory. When I was trying to teach myself how to code, it was a directory of bed and breakfast destinations. And it was about as ugly as you can imagine. It was just, the homepage had a map, and then it was a link to all 50 states, like a green background. I ran it for years and only just recently pulled it offline because it had done its job, and, and I just recently pulled it offline. But you can find it in archive. Yeah, Planet, letter B, letter N, letter B. That one helped me just understand how to code a website, how to change the background, how to get it ranked for specific terms, what good things to do, bad things to do. Other sites, let's see, early ones, Appalachian Trail is a good example. Landbetweenthelakes.com is another one that is more domain side and more city-based, similar to Brevard.com. So I bought and have recently sold Land Between the Lakes, which is oddly, it's the largest inland peninsula in the United States, and it's right over in Tennessee and Kentucky, and it's a big attraction for folks in the Midwest mainly, and it's a huge, massive lake, 2 lakes, Lake Barkley and Lake, just 2 lakes that surround this peninsula, and it has tons of outdoor activities within Land Between the Lakes, from hiking to swimming to fishing. And they do a lot of 4-wheeling, and they have a big, like a Jeep 4x4 trail. But Land Between the Lakes is another one that I kind of built and developed.
So that's it. So you got Appalachian Trail, you've got Planet B&B, you got Land Between the Lakes. So it's, I kind of look at those sites and I go, okay, with Appalachian Trail and Land Between the Lakes, I can kind of see a geo play beginning to surface. But then Planet B&B was more like a web directory. And so it's almost like you kind of spend, I guess you spent those first couple of years or whatever between, I guess, more of tourism while at the same time being more informational.
Yeah, informational, hospitality. I do like the hospitality and the travel industry. Mainly just because I think they're fun industries to be associated with. Just you're helping other folks, plan their vacation and be, tied to this this aspect. There's a company called HomeAway, and their old CEO, his name is Brian Sharples, and he had a good speech throughout. It's on a YouTube video where he talks about the reason why he enjoyed working at HomeAway, because HomeAway was so closely tied to two different aspects that he enjoyed being associated with, just memories and happiness. And, going on these vacations allowed his family to create these wonderful memories, and everybody's happy. And that struck a chord with me. I was like, I enjoy that as well. Dude Ranch, touches on that. Land Between the Lakes touches on that. Planet B&B does in regards just to a vacation. And it just felt like fun. Didn't quite feel like work. It felt more like fun to me building those out. And it's fun for me to build out because I could go visit Land Between the Lakes. I could go visit and eat bed and breakfast, or I could go visit a dude ranch from a business perspective and try to either lift that industry or provide them more value or share that industry with someone else who may be considering it. So yeah, hospitality and any kind of business that is on the outskirts of kind of memories or happiness. I really tend to be drawn to.
Gotcha. So then so Appalachian Trail to Dude Ranch. So now I think you documented the story on Dude Ranch, I think online, if I stand corrected there.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I wrote, when I sold it about 6 months ago, I tried my best to write a pretty a concise background on how I acquired it, how we tried to build it, and how I justified the price that I paid for it.
And so walk us through then in terms of how did Dude Ranch even come across your radar?
Yeah, so it had expired. It was previously owned by a dude ranch up in New York State that sold a few times to new owners, and the new owners didn't quite take care of that dude ranch called Roseland Ranch. And each subsequent owner kind of ran the ranch into the ground. And so they ultimately closed the dude ranch, and they operated off the domain duderanch.com. And they operated it for years, shut the business down, and then abandoned the domain name. And once they abandoned the domain, it physically expired and went up for auction. And this was 2009. And this, so I started roughly strongly focusing on domaining in 2005, 2006. And so after about a good 3 years of watching expiring domain auctions, for the most part, every single day, checking in to see what domains are expiring. Wow. Do any domains match kind of the criteria that I enjoy focusing on or that I might enjoy developing? And in November roughly of 2019, Dude Ranch had expired. And so I had this kind of directory marketplace exposure from building Planet B&B. I had a rough idea how to do it. I knew it could drive leads. It was a good lead generator. I didn't necessarily have to package anything up and ship anything out. I could just stand in the middle, help drive leads, which I sort of learned from the paid search perspective, where I could drive traffic, get the traffic to convert, look at the conversion rate. Am I above water? Am I below water in regards to advertising spend? And so now I'm losing.
So you got into auction. Well, you got into an auction, I guess, bid off, right? I think.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we got into it was just a good typical, when a good domain expires like that and as a true drop, you'll get all the big heavy hitters. And I think Michael Birkins, I remember his handle in there, but I'm sure every single person in the industry was in there. But I had justified in my head, 25,000, I think was the rough number I was shooting for. I probably would have spent up to 50,000 and just figured out how to pay that off down the road. I probably would have. Thank goodness it didn't get that high. But so it went, just the typical back and forth. I think it was a good 30 minutes. It felt like 3 hours, the auction process, but going back and forth, and you don't know what the top is going to be, because this was still, folks were still making good money on the parking aspect of domain names. Right. And the heavy hitters were dropping a lot of money in expiring domains. But this was one I in many ways, I refuse to let anyone else acquire. But I wonder what my top bid would have been if it kept going up, what I would have spent. Probably close to 50, but thank goodness it stopped. The exact number, if I'm right, was 17,949 was the exact number, but it was back and forth, back and forth. I mean, cold sweats. Nights before I was losing sleep because I kept thinking about it, and but I really wanted that domain.
It was a fingernail biter.
It was, rough. And, I'm cussing at the computer because I don't like the other people. And then, Snap Names let you see other people's handles. So you can direct your anger at a person's username versus GoDaddy. GoDaddy just shows you bidder 4, bidder 2. So you don't know who it is. So at least you can concentrate your anger towards someone else in a fun way. But so full auction. And then, won it in November and then took 6 months to develop it.
So then in terms of, so you said, hey, I was willing to go, I think you said 25,000, but you were like, hey, I'm actually willing to go 50,000. So when I start thinking about that, I'm going, what on earth, like, how did you even gauge, like, what criteria was that you used to say, okay, if I know that I'm willing to outlay 50,000 because it's likely going to return X amount, like, how did you figure that all out? Or what was your thinking behind it?
It sort of touches on the fact that this was a high ticket item, and a high ticket item. So if I assume that $10,000 sale for one typical booking that I might drive through the site, I might expect, if it was $10,000, I might expect that the Dude Ranch is making, 30% margins maybe on that lead. So they may make $3,000. So if I drive the Dude Ranch one lead per year, they would make $3,000. Now, would that Dude Ranch be willing to pay me $500 or $1,000 per year to have a listing on my site?
Gotcha.
That would make sense. I wanted to make my advertising fee just a no-brainer. When they came to me, there was that, of course, when they see my invoice come through, they would say, yes, of course, Peter, no-brainer. He drives us leads. We see it through phone calls. We see it through our analytics. We see it through form submissions. And so then it turned the equation back over to me, where I'd have to determine, okay, how many leads can I drive to these Dude Ranches over the first year, over the second year, third, fourth, to at least give me a perspective on how long it might take me to pay back that investment.
And how many Dude Ranches are there?
Let's see, in the entire universe of Dude Ranches, probably 300 or 400.
Okay.
Yeah, and all primarily focused, in out west, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming. But oddly, there's a Dude Ranch here in Georgia, about an hour away from Atlanta, Southern Cross, right out I-20. Yeah, they got about 100 head of horses. It's a legit Dude Ranch. But there's some up in the mountains in North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia, up in New York State still. But the big concentration is out west. That's where the big draw is for the old. We have ranches that are 130 years old that have been operating Dude Ranchers for that long. So that's where most of my customers were, although we had East Coast. So that's how I kind of justified the rough cost. How many leads do I think I can drive them? And so I looked at the rough. I was like, I think I can drive them maybe 12 to, I could probably drive $12,000 to $13,000 worth of business in the first year, maybe that same amount in my second year. So I was like, that's around 25,000. That seems like, I think I can probably get this domain for 25,000. Because when I was bidding, I was mainly bidding against domain investors who wanted to buy it and try to flip it down the road. So they were limited in the amount that they wanted to spend because they just wanted to flip it. Where on my side, I was able to view the domain from a business perspective, where I could put a value. How much money can I generate off this domain if I fully build it out? So in my head, I could put a higher value on it and outbid them. I might still be stuck with the bill on it, but I was able to at least justify a higher bid versus most of the domain investors that were in the auction. Thank goodness.
So then how long did it take from the time, so you paid roughly $18,000, like how did you recoup that original investment? How long did it take?
Let's see. So I was still working a 9 to 5 when I acquired Dude Ranch. So just my day job, I paid off the domain, in 6 months just for my day job.
Was that a cash purchase?
Yeah, credit cards. Yeah, they had a credit card. Yeah, it was credit cards. They still allowed, well, snap names at that point still. It wasn't the wire transfer because NamesJet, anything over 5,000 requires a wire transfer in.
Right.
This was a credit card transaction. They pinged. I had to call my credit card company to make sure, because I was like, please, I do not need any kind of weird stuff going on here. If I win this domain, because I didn't want to win the domain, SnapNames try to ping my credit card company turns it down, and they, I don't know, release the domain back out for another auction. So I was checking with my credit card company saying, hey, I'm about to get an $18,000 charge. I don't need any funny business on your side. I need you to accept it.
Right.
So they were doing test transactions on my card to make sure that it would pass. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. You're fine. You got a limit. You're good to go. And so, yeah, they pinged my credit card for the $18,000. So I just paid it off on my credit card with my 9-to-5 job.
Wow. And so that took you roughly how long, I guess?
Yeah, like 6 months. But I mean, I was using my salary from my 9-to-5, so I was just paying off, whatever the math is. Yeah.
And I guess you were single at that moment, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I was still single, wasn't married. So I didn't have, my expenses were pretty low. I was just living in a tiny apartment. I didn't need much to make me happy. So I paid off that investment as fast as I could, just so I didn't have to have that burden hanging above me. Once I got the investment paid off, then it's gravy. Now I don't feel as not stressed. I can let that site grow as fast as it wants to grow. And not, grow for the sake of growth, because I know I'm in a very, very niche industry, in that dude ranch industry. It might take me, that industry is, they want to see you, they want to shake your hand, they want to have a relationship with you. So I wasn't sure how long it might take me to, establish a relationship with those dude ranches. It might take 2 or 3 years for me to do that. But my first conference, there's an actual dude ranch conference. And
really,
through an association called the Dude Ranchers Association. So they operate off of duderanch.org. And so I had duderanch.com. And so they were nice enough to let me come, give me a booth at the conference. And so I came to the conference and I started signing up advertisers at the booth, my first conference. And that is another testament just to the power of a good domain name. They sort of knew my site, but the fact that I was there and I had a booth and my domain name, but I was schmuck from Atlanta, going out to a Dude Ranch conference, and I had a booth, I had a tablecloth, and I had a few other giveaways at my booth, but nothing fancy. But I started getting advertisers where they were willing to give me a shot, and they're very kind to give me that shot. But it goes, and that started really proving to me these domains are legit. And if I run a small operation, because I tend to build solo and use freelancers when I kind of hit my knowledge wall.
Right.
And so I like running really lean operations. And so my domains, give me that, I guess you can call it an unfair advantage. I like the unfair advantage that these really good domain names give me, and the ability for me to compete head to head with any size company, just on the sheer fact that I have a really good domain and maybe a really well-designed website, and then other small aspects, just the customer service side for, always being on call for my dude ranchers. They need to call me. They have my phone number. They can call me. Most of the time I just pick up. If I don't, I'll call them back within 30 minutes or an hour and answer questions that they might have, or how do they do this or that, and I ended up just volunteering and just doing just volunteer work for most of the dude ranchers. One dude ranch had a really bad website, so I just rebuilt their website for them just because I felt like it. And and just doing small things like that just to help the industry, because what might take them a really long time, or what might be a $10,000 or $20,000 purchase to hire someone to build a website, it would take me a day or two to build a modest website on an easy to use theme within WordPress. And then I would give them access to the back end where they can make updates, change their rates, update photographs, and all those small aspects.
Oh, wow. So it's So that's an interesting just point of it's really more about the personal touch than it really is about, because some people come into this development and they're like, oh, hey, I get a domain, I develop it. I'm going to wait for the search engines to rank and then bring me customers. And that's my rags to riches story.
Yeah.
But in that case, that's not your story. You're like, hey, this is more about the personal touch.
A personal touch. I mean, this is not a set it and forget it type of development. So, and that's why a lot of times I'm very picky on the types of industries I try to dovetail into, because I realize it's going to be a long term. Most of the time, I understand it's going to be a 10-year project or longer.
Really?
5 or 10 year. So I need to start settling in and start laying the foundation of how this business can build and grow on that really long term. I mean, Vidalia, I'm in for 5 or 6 years now. I mean, I sold Dude Ranch after 10 years. But yeah, long term, but it is. I think Jessica mentioned that on your previous speak with her, those personal touches, they go a really, really long way. And hell, it made me feel good. It made me feel good to help that Dude Ranch. And they're in Jackson Hole. Now I'm good friends with them. And, they run a property that, faces the Grand Teton Mountains. And, I've taken my daughter there twice now. And now I can, pop in and say hello to them whenever I pass through, Jackson Hole or out west. But yeah, personal touches it's overlooked because everyone's trying to automate stuff or try to find shortcuts. And I don't know why I always tend to go the opposite way. I like doing some of these long-term, having a phone number that they can call versus outsourcing that to a VA or some of the grunt work, doing some of the actual coding, or rather than trying to not waste time, rather than trying to outsource some of the nitty gritty of the business, just do it yourself. The whole automated world that everyone's trying to pitch or promote online, I don't know, it sometimes rubs me the wrong way because it just seems like you're not trying to cheat, but you're trying to remove the most authentic aspect of the business. Where if it's a phone number or somebody physically sees you at a conference and taking yourself out of your comfort zone a lot of times. I mean, there was plenty of times where I had imposter syndrome just really hammering me on that Dude Ranch because I was like, who am I? They're going to call me out. I feel like a fraud doing this, but every moment you had to take a step back to say, okay, I'm one of the good guys. I'm trying to provide value to them. I have a great domain and I'm already getting traffic to the site that I can see is either calling or visiting their site or filling out form submissions. So I know I can provide value to them. But it is odd. I mean, on the Dude Rancher side, a lot of times the Dude Ranchers, they'll be, some of the Dude Rancher, like one Dude Rancher was in the alcohol industry. He got a biggest sale on his alcohol industry, on his business, and then went and bought a Dude Ranch. So a lot of times, most of the Dude Ranchers have entirely opposite careers.
Right.
And then they exit one career and they go buy a Dude Ranch and then they operate it. So a lot of us have similar kind of careers. Maybe we're based in the city and then we make a lifestyle change and go operate a Dude Ranch. Or their families that have been operating them, for 3 or 4 generations as the opposite end of that.
Wow. So I mean, so you've had some up to that point. You were having success in terms of the Dude Ranch, Appalachian Trail, Planet B&B. But let's talk about the other side of that equation in terms of failures. It's like, what failures or lessons learned, experiences have you stumbled upon as well in terms of some of the things that you thought, oh man, I'm going to go buy this domain, develop it, and fizzle.
Oh gosh. Well, in regards to one thing I learned, and it kind of touches on what we just spoke about, and there are no shortcuts for this stuff. Folks may pitch shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. And a lot of times, if you take the long way, you just build better stuff, I've found. But for other domains that I've purchased since those Dude Ranch days that didn't move the direction, I had plenty. I mean, calltracking.com was one that I was in love with. And I partnered up with a friend here in Atlanta, and we were going to build a no-frills call tracking application. And it was going to dovetail into Dude Ranch because I was going to start tracking phone calls from Dude Ranch to all my Dude Ranches. So I'd have another layer. So I'd have another layer of just analytics to pass along to the Dude Rancher. So I could say, hey, I drove you 1,000 clicks, 50 form submissions and 100 phone calls this past year. Now here's your renewal invoice. Do you want to renew? So, and there are some really good ones. There's a really great call tracking company here in Atlanta, and I'm an acquaintance of the CEO. They're called CallRail, but they had almost too many bells and whistles for me. I preferred something just stripped down. I wanted a super simple call tracking application. I just needed to generate a number, and then because I'm cheap, I didn't want to buy multiple numbers. I wanted one number with extensions. So for Dude Ranch, I could have one number and they could type in, extension 101 for Alvin's Dude Ranch, 102 for Peter's Dude Ranch. And that way I'd only have to pay for one single number versus, you have a separate fee per number that you use or lease per month.
Right.
So long story short, we built that. We took 6 to 9 months to build the dang thing, built it. And then I started hard selling it, even to people who gave me basically a thumbs up. Saying, hey, we're very interested in this. If you build it, from agencies to end users. I built it and then tried to sell, subscriptions to it. And I just got, meh, this is just, okay, whatever. It's just another call tracking application.
Now, how much had you invested in it?
We bought the domain for 20, and then we had about maybe 8 to 10 in development. Not even including my time. So all my time has been sunk in. So I'm not even looking at I didn't even draw a salary from it. So I just built it out, but I love the domain, but it fell flat hard. And so at that point, once my friend, the CEO at CallRail, got wind that I bought that domain, because this is the name of the industry. If people need call tracking software, they search for call tracking. The cost per click, and this dovetails back into paid search, the cost per click is insanely high, anywhere from $100 to $130 a click within Google, only because it's such a profitable industry. Right. So it's super expensive to buy clicks for the call tracking type terms. And so once Andy, who's the CEO of CallRail, got wind that I bought call tracking, he opened up dialogue saying, hey, he was like, how did you get that domain name? I wish, can we have lunch and just talk through it? And I was like, and I knew him well enough. So we had lunch a few times, and I tried to make him understand I'm not trying to go after his customers. I just wanted a super simple call tracking application. But he was nice enough to just leave the door open saying, hey, if the thought of selling this ever crosses your mind, if I could get first right of refusal, I would really appreciate first right. And I was like, of course. I mean, you're a local Atlanta. I mean, we're all pretty tight. The Atlanta startup scene is pretty tight. And so after we built it, after I started trying to sell it, and I was getting nowhere selling it. But the site, amazingly, goes back to a great domain name. The site was getting, 10 to 15 organic visits a day from people just typing it in and going to calltracking.com. And when you apply the $100 to $130 a click to the traffic, the name, outside of the name alone, it had value just based on the traffic that it was receiving. And so when we realized it wasn't going to work, I reached back out to Andy saying, hey, I offered you first right. If you want to consider this, throw us some offers and we can figure out if we can meet in the middle. And so I said, and I made sure he understood, okay, we have the domain for sale, but you're also buying traffic, because this thing is getting traffic. If you want our existing customers, we had a few at that point, we can hire the customers, or at least can you please take care of them? If you buy this from us, don't leave them hanging. And so we went back and forth, and then found, and the end of the day number was, I think, 120,000 that we sold it to CallRail for. And so had a fairly good exit, but in many ways, that was a failure that did not work. I got lucky that we were able to sell it. And one other we can quickly mention, at landsurvey.com is one. I think there's still an opportunity in it. I tried to build it out as a directory of land surveyors, had a lot of challenges trying to educate the land surveying industry on the value of advertising. I think that's...
Why's that?
Yeah, I think that's a really old school industry. I don't think they quite understand. I had challenges trying to educate them on just the value of advertising. I had assumed that they were up to speed. They really rely on a lot of word of mouth. So I was trying to sell them on the aspects of, or the value of being listed under Atlanta land surveyors, or that category within Atlanta or Georgia. And they they expressed no interest. And so I had to take a back. Now, whether this almost goes back into sites that I prefer building, which tend to be more hospitality, memories, happiness, that kind of stuff. And it didn't touch on land survey. I think there is a business model, but I didn't give it enough time because it wasn't the type of industry that I enjoy developing. So I started going into it, started getting pushback, and then I was like, I don't even enjoy building this type of industry. I prefer, hospitality, travel, memories, happiness. And so I was like, I just need to pull back and figure out what to do with that domain name. So hopefully I've had nibbles. I've gotten close to selling it to a couple of land surveying companies. So I think that one hopefully can just sell down the road eventually to somebody who might want to build out another. But it's an incredible domain. I love the domain. And it's a gargantuan industry. I mean, from commercial land surveys to residential land surveys. It's a huge industry. And that's what I was gaga for when that domain, and it was expensive. I spent $26,000 on it, I think, is what I spent on it. It was really expensive.
You and these $20,000 domains.
Yeah, that one, sort of hurt, but I was able to offset some of that cost from the call tracking sale, and so that helped, so I could pay off that. So hopefully, I'd sell it for what I got in it for the most part, just to get out of it. But it still has industry. It still has, it has a lot of opportunity, either for someone else or even me. Maybe I just strike out on my own and try to do it again down the road.
Well, that's interesting because I would take something like a land survey and definitely equate it to something like a dude ranch. Obviously, dude ranch is more of vacation, whereas land survey, though, I'm just thinking, it's almost like you take the same playbook and attend a conference there for land surveying and do the same, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yep.
But you found that not to be the case, though.
Yeah, so I attended a land surveying conference, and maybe it was the wrong one. They have their big national association, so I was like, I assume everybody goes to the main national association. It was in Vegas, if I'm correct. Went, and I got the same kind of reaction I got from people over the phone or in real life here in the Atlanta and the Georgia area. Them just kind of looking at the product and the service going, okay, you got a new domain, but I get all my leads from the local government or association. We have a partnership with maybe an engineering firm. The engineering firm feeds us all. And so I was trying to convince them, well, what happens if that lead goes away? What happens if the engineering firm stops giving you leads? And then they were like, we haven't even thought that far. So I was like, you may want to have some backups. How about you start driving your own leads through land survey? And they're like, man, we'll think about it. And just nothing would happen. I was like, you know what? I'm spending a lot of time in this and nothing is converting and I'm not having any fun doing it. I was like, I have fun. I got spoiled with Dude Ranch. I was like, man, I got a business here that I get to go visit out west, 2 or 3 times a year, go hang out at a Dude Ranch where I get to fly fish and trap and skeet shoot and ride mountain bikes, and then I get to photograph everything and share videos and be on vacation for my business. And then I'm trying to downshift into land surveying, which I was like, this isn't as good of a match as I thought it might be. So that conference didn't work, and I was like, I need to reassess what I did with this. I just spent a lot of money on a domain name, and I don't know what to do with it.
So now, how big, I guess, is your domain portfolio? I mean, we've talked about the sites that you develop, but I guess, do you have a portfolio, and what size is it?
It's getting smaller every year. It is. Yeah, it's because I just tend to, buy to develop. And so if I can't buy it, if there isn't a development path for a domain that I'll acquire, I tend to I'll pass.
So how big was the portfolio, and then where is it at today?
Yeah, good question. I probably got as high as maybe 300 to 400 domains, probably in my peak. So nothing terribly large. And then I'm easily under 100 right now, maybe closer to 50 right now. But if I do acquire a domain, it's usually in the 20 is usually around my very, very high. There hasn't been a domain that's expired yet. Napkin.com was one that I was almost willing to bid on, but I didn't see a development path. I was like, what am I going to sell napkins on the internet or fabric napkins? What am I going to do? But just the name itself was just so beautiful. that it could just be applied to anything, to a startup. I think a startup firm bought it. I think they operate off napkin.com. That was one I was very interested in, but ended up just passing because I didn't see a development path for it. But yeah, so yeah, I would probably say around 50 or 60 right now. But every year, if I have a domain that either sells or if I don't have a use for it that I bought years ago, I just let it expire and move on.
He cuts the losses then.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then, kind of with where you're at today, so I mean, what's the backstory? Obviously, in terms of most people know you, or rather, we see that you're actively tweeting about onions out of all things these days. So, kind of what's the story on the VidaliaOnions.com project? Like, how did that all come to be?
Yeah, another expiring domain name. Expired in 2014, and
Really?
just being in Georgia. Being in Georgia, I'm familiar with the onion, and it's considered the the caviar of sweet onions. If anybody is preparing, or especially fancy chefs, if they're preparing meals and they ask for a sweet onion, they always default like, get a Vidalia. If you can get a Vidalia, get one. If not, you can go consider the alternatives, Walla Walla or Texas 1015 or a Maui. And so I saw it, and this one was the most fascinating just for me, and just trying to analyze myself on why I am drawn to some domains versus others. And most of the time I don't quite know. Whenever a domain is presented to me, then I can really dig into it to see if there might be some level of interest. Because my purchase path tends to move this way. I have to have some level of interest in the domain first. And then if I have a level of interest, is there opportunity there? And then if there is opportunity to either provide a product or a service, if there is opportunity, then I'll try to figure out profit. Can I make profit? If there is opportunity, can I keep the thing afloat? And typically I'll just buy it based on interest. Whether that's right or wrong, that's how I tend to do it. I buy it because I'm interested in it. And then I figure out if there's an opportunity. Land survey, I liked it. I had an interest. I bought it. There was no opportunity. There didn't appear to be an opportunity. And then I found out I really wasn't interested in it.
Interesting.
But
so it's kind of like key lime pie, right? Because I think you had a to tweet. I'm key lime pie.
That one's not really going anywhere right now. I tried to find a key lime pie provider or baker. I found a really interesting one up in New York City, but I think he's going his own route. He
Gotcha.
is interested in kind of building it out. He owns the domain, the great domain keylime.com. So it appears he's going to try to ship and fulfill, and I can't blame him. He's going to keep it all in-house and not leverage a third party. Vidalia was just such a wonderful match between me and the farm, where the farm didn't even have a website prior to me meeting and being introduced to the farm down in Vidalia. And so it expired, and I truly had no interest in. I thought the domain was going to sell for $5,000 or $10,000. So when it was around 1,800 or 2,000, I was watching it. I was like, let me just drop a bid in at 2,000 because that's still a pretty good deal.
Right.
Pretty confident I'll be outbid. And maybe it was around 2,200. 2,200, put a bid in, and then crickets. No one else bid, and then I won it for 2,200. And I was like, son of a gun. I was like, okay, another $2,200. Let's find a way to pay this on the credit card. And so I got it, and then moved right back into Dude Ranch. Moved into what was I doing? I was mainly Dude Ranch. I went right back into Dude Ranch, but I kept working on Dude Ranch, and I kept looking at Vidalia. I was like, I guess it was my gut or something just kept telling me there might be something there. And I kept thinking about, I buy those pears from Harry and David every year. Right. They have such wonderful pears. And so I was like, well, who's doing that for Vidalia? Who's doing that really well? Like farm to door Vidalias. Onions. Let me search on the internet and see who's doing that well. And there were a few farmers who were just kind of halvesy doing it. One farm makes you fill out a piece of paper. They have a PDF on their website, and you have to print the PDF out and write out the credit card number on the piece of paper, mail it to them, and then when they get around to it, they'll send you some Vidalias. And so I was like, I'm confident I can make that process a little easier, but I got to have a good farm. And so I got introduced to they have a Vidalia Onion kind of business committee and council down there. And so I cold called them and went down to visit. It was nice. They're only 3 hours away from me driving.
Nice.
So I just drove down there, met them. And just to prove to them I'm not some weirdo from the internet, that I'm interested. I have a background in building businesses for really kind of niche industries. There seems to be. And so I really got into conversation with them. I was asking them, where do you guys see the lowest hanging fruit for this industry? Now, whether they were trying to butter me up, I don't know. But they kept saying mail order, and which, basically internet orders. They were like, mail order is something that the farmers are not concentrating enough on. I was like, okay, that's what I'm kind of interested in doing. And so they introduced me to 3 farmers, just saying, because I kept repeating to them, I have the domain. I have this great domain. I know I can build a really good, easy to use e-commerce website. But then the final, component is I have to have the best onion, or just one of the best onion, because if I start shipping a poor onion that's either hot or mushy or got brown spots, this is dead in the water.
Yeah.
And so they were nice enough to really just cherry pick some leads for me. And so and they were able to introduce me to make it a little bit easier, where I don't come across as a weirdo on the internet. So they were at least able to introduce me and make the connections. And I hit it off with the 3rd farmer that I met. And he's been such a blessing to me. And his name's Aries Haygood. And we were a really good fit in regards to partnering up and being flexible on what our expectations were on this business. We both didn't know where it was going to go.
Right.
And so we were both in the camp of, let's just put it out there and see what happens. And so they have a shipping and fulfillment ability down at their packing shed in Vidalia. So UPS backs up to our farm dock door, and we fulfill directly from our packing shed onto UPS trucks. And so we just roll the dice. And at that point I was collecting emails from the website homepage for I just called it priority notification. I still have it up in our off season. So submit your email, and then I'll send you an email when we're officially accepting orders every year. And so the first year I just collected emails for 6 months, and then I pinged all those customers, and then did heavy paid search for the remainder of the year. And we had some fairly good exposure with an SEO as well. And we did, 600 orders in our first year, just out of the blue. Companies, somebody never given us business before. They took a risk on us. And so I wanted to make sure that we were, shipping stuff, that I was answering calls from customers to make sure if UPS lost a box, I need to do, whether it's the customer's fault, whether it's UPS's fault, it doesn't matter. I take care of it and I fix it. Even if we lose money, I fix it and send them another box, or do a make good, or give them credit, or XYZ, whatever the customer really wants, to try to take care of them as much as possible. And I found I really enjoyed that aspect. And a lot of the customers enjoy just talking to me on the phone, because they're either from the area or grew up in the Southeast, and now they're positioned out in Portland, Oregon. And, it's very difficult to find Vidalias out there. And I can ship, within 4 or 5 days out to Portland.
Right.
And they can have dock to door, onions for, as low as $2.50 a pound, which it's in many ways cheaper than the grocery stores here in Georgia.
Now that is amazing. And so you really found then, I guess, a great match in terms of kind of running the helping to, I guess, get the efficiency right in terms of logistics, but also being that front face to the company.
So I could take that off. Correct. Yeah. So I could take that off the farm. But I do partner with them. So this is all basically under the farm's wing. We operate this with the farm, because this is M&T's farm. In the early days, I was trying to determine, do I pick 3 farms, and do I ship onions from 3 farms just so I have? And so one of my early decisions was, no, I'm going to pick, now whether this is right or wrong, it's turned out to be for us the right decision. I made the decision just to choose 1 farm, because I was more concerned if I picked 3 farms, and if one farm starts shipping a bad onion, I wouldn't know which farm to turn off, or it'd be very difficult for me to find, because if I start shipping bad onions, this project is dead. I have to have consistently good onions. And M&T and Aries, they came highly regarded, and it came highly regarded from the Vidalia Onion Business Committee. And so I just decided just to partner with Aries. And this would be an extension of M&T Farms. This would be sort of their website because they didn't even have one. And then a component of the website would be farm to door. But we also have, a wholesale side. We have a fundraising side. A lot of folks do fundraising efforts and buy Vidalias, and we'll ship them, a truckload of Vidalias to sell for a school fundraiser or for any kind of nonprofit. But a really good match where Aries and his crew can concentrate on growing a great onion. And this is just a value add because the majority of their business is still, doing bulk, and they ship millions of pounds of Vidalias every year. So what I'm providing them is just icing on top of the cake for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So it's not that it's just an onion, because obviously I don't know anything about onions other than please saute them.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those things that go, well, VidaliaOnions.com. I mean, why not just onion or onions.com?
Right, which we can dovetail into that. So I did have the opportunity to buy onions.com, let's see, in 2000, right the beginning of 2019. After I started having some success with Vidalia, the domain, it had passed hands a few times, and one of the owners placed it up for sale on Flippa, and I was aware of it. A few of my other friends, Warren Royal, who runs bobbleheads.com, is here in the Atlanta suburbs. And so he and I speak every now and then. And so he pinged me and let me know that, hey, onions is going up if you want to try to get it. At that time, I thought it wasn't a very good match because I'm so boutique. I sell a Vidalia. I don't sell an onion. I sell a Vidalia onion. Very different than onions.com. So initially I just passed. I wasn't interested in it. And it sold for like 18,000. And I suppose the person who bought it had read maybe a story about what we were building with Vidalia, and maybe he thought he would be able to flip it to me for an instant profit. And so not a week after he bought it, he shot me an email saying that he was checking to see if I was interested, and I passed. And so after that point, I saw it for sale on Biz Buy Sell, and then I saw it for sale again on Flippa, and it wasn't meeting reserve. And the highest bid they were getting was $6,000 to $8,000 roughly. And then I think I went to NamesCon last year. Was it last year? And I bought it. Yeah, it was last year because I can't go this year. But I went to NamesCon, and some other domainers just gave me a good perspective saying, listen, this is we understand you sell a boutique item, but there's one opportunity for you to get this domain name. And I did. I had some extra cash from the call tracking sale. And I was like, you know what? They're exactly right. I'm kind of stupid not to consider this. Let's just buy it just for a good blue chip domain name. I'll figure out what to do. And we still don't quite know what to do with it. My farmer is actually using it for email now. So his email is aries at onions.com. So
wow.
I'm just letting him use it for email, which makes me very happy. I appreciate the fact that he can leverage that gorilla of a domain name. And
I bet that brings him into many conversations.
I hope so. So he's just started using the domain, the past month. So I've owned the domain over a year.
Wow.
And I'm still, we have the potential of selling another onion in our off season, a Peruvian sweet onion. So some Vidalia farmers are going down to South America, to Peru, and growing the same Vidalia seed in Peru so we can have Vidalia type sweet onions throughout the entire year. So there might be an opportunity which we're going to begin shipping or going to test shipping Peruvian sweet onions at the end in fall of 2020. And so I'll probably do that through onions.com, probably onions.com/Peru. And maybe there's some other aspects where maybe we go down into maybe salad dressings or relishes. I'm not quite sure on that, but I enjoy just the raw product right now, and I let everyone else make their own salsa or relish or what have you.
Nice. And so now you mentioned Peruvian. So I guess, do you own Peruvian onions or?
Yeah, I got lucky. Yeah, thank goodness they were open reg. I grabbed PeruvianOnions.com and PeruOnions.com. They redirect to onions.com. I was like, I'm not going to let any domainers grab those. Sorry, everyone.
Interesting. Yeah,
so
between Vidalia onions, obviously that's I guess it's kind of a seasonal thing, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's worked well. So I open up. Well, we begin shipping. The beginning of the season changes every year, just based on the maturity of the onion. So usually it's the end of April, beginning of May is when we begin shipping. So it's usually May, June, end of July is when I am shipping hardcore. Every single day, taking phone calls every day. My phone line is open between noon and 4 usually, and I'm in that fulfillment aspect. Yeah, so it's a perfect seasonal business and great for the farm because they don't have to necessarily employ me. I work with them. This project is kind of nested under their wing, but my salary is paid from the sales that I'm generating off of the website, and then
Nice.
then they get just extra exposure and just a web guy on their side. They don't have to that they don't have to necessarily focus on.
Well, shoot, they get more than a web guy. They're getting like a full digital strategist.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what to call myself some days, dude.
Hey, a jack of all trades, a master of what's important.
Maybe the best way to put it.
So then with Vidalia onions being seasonal, so then obviously let's talk a little bit about birthday parties and kind of where that all came from. Because I believe that's, I know that's one that you mentioned while we were there in Asheville.
Yeah. So yeah, Vidalia seasonal. And I've been trying to find, Land Survey went down this. I've been trying to find one bigger project that I can really go a deep dive on. I thought Land Survey might be it, and it ended up being not the best match for me, but something that I can concentrate on year round, but then downshift into Vidalia during its seasonal part, because I don't anticipate leaving Vidalia anytime soon. I maybe never. Because I enjoy it so much. It's such a fulfilling industry, and I feel fortunate to be even associated with that industry. But
Nice.
Trying to find another project where similar to Dude Ranch, I could get really, really deep and really commit to it for a long term. And I've been looking for it for many years. And then in 2018, the domain birthdayparties.com expired, and it was a well, at least it appeared to me, and still appears because I have no paying advertisers yet on the whole project, but it had a similar model to Dude Ranch. I can provide a helpful marketplace or directory. And I've actually had this pain point. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and every year, her interests are changing. So I'm always looking for interesting birthday party places in the Atlanta area. And I'm not interested in driving 30 or 40 miles away to the suburbs. I'd like to find one that's close to my house, that is appropriate for a 9-year-old, and maybe is targeted to girls or boys and girls, but almost create a search engine where I can just search, just show me all the birthday parties in my place, in my rough area. And nothing like that existed. So this has been one of the rare points where I actually had a slight need for myself. I was scratching my own itch, and I know how to build these types of sites. It's a pretty good lead. Typically, a birthday party the average birthday party is around $400. So if I can drive one lead to them every year, maybe I can charge a birthday party destination $99 a year to be listed on my site. And if I drive them one lead, it would cover all their profit and my advertising, and then all the additional leads that I drive them are just gravy for them. So once that one expired, I went, pretty much all in. I was very committed to it from the auction. It expired at GoDaddy, and actually, let me just pull up Name Bio too, because Alvin, it sold. Let me get the exact number. Hopefully, I don't take long doing this. It sold about 10 years ago. Yeah, 2007. Birthdayparties.com sold at GoDaddy for $65,000. And
wow,
somebody owned it for this rough 11-year term, didn't renew it, goes back up for auction at GoDaddy. And I grabbed it for $5,600 at GoDaddy, which I was willing to spend a whole lot more. Probably not 65, but probably in that 20,000. So in that 20,000, I probably would have spent 20 or 25,000 on it, or maybe a little bit more.
You so got it for less than 10% of what they. Wow.
Yeah, so I was I was happy with that price. And I don't know if I caught other investors sleeping, but that's about maybe the right price. It could have been an end user trying to buy it, domain investor price was probably around 510 possibly, but I was very happy to buy it for 5,600. And then I went into the development, did all the development pieces the right way. Dude Ranch, I coded and hand designed myself. This one, I've found a really good designer developer that's actually local here in Atlanta. Used her to really do a design and development that's built for long term, really mobile responsive.
Nice.
And got a logo created for it, business cards, the whole 9 yards, and then launched it on September 1st. And so I'm in the mud right now, just building it, establishing relationships, buying traffic through paid search, monitoring the website to make sure it's helpful for customers. And I'm just using some of the raw analytics. Are they staying on the site for a couple of minutes? So the average time on my site's 4 to 5 minutes, which
nice.
I love seeing. Are they filling out the form submission? So I have, if you visit, Alvin's Ball Pit, and I'll have a form submission on each listing page that says, hey, reach out to this birthday party if you want to get a lead. So I'll forward all those leads to the birthday party destination, almost like an olive branch. So I've had, maybe 30 or 40 form submissions sent through the site already. People are signing up for my email reminder. So I'll have a reminder. So every year I'll send suggestions based on your month and your child's age and your location. And so I have families signing up for the email newsletter. So it appears to be the resource itself seems to be helpful so far. I mean, I've been using it for myself to plan my daughter's birthday. I have to remind myself, okay, what is nearby? Okay, we have an ice skating rink. We have the roller skating place. We got the little kids spa place. Oh, we have the cooking place. I forgot about the cooking place. Oh, and then also the karate instructor does a really good birthday party, kind of under the scenes, but still, one to consider. And so we also provide pricing and not availability, but the pricing, extras that you might get with each birthday party destination. But those are my two kind of primaries that I'm really focusing on right now: birthday parties and Vidalia. From a development standpoint.
You mentioned birthday parties. So is birthday parties, I guess, well, at least for right now, I guess you'd said that you're just trying to focus on the Atlanta area, but is that something that I guess grows, to the U.S. footprint, or is that a global project? Like, how do you...
It could be global. I will concentrate on the U.S. first and go coast to coast. So I'm in Atlanta and Nashville. I'll be within Charlotte here in the next couple of weeks. And then I'll expand out and probably go to Seattle, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and then up the East Coast, Philadelphia, and then into Texas with Dallas, and then Colorado. But I'll start populating some of these larger cities where a big concentration of families are primarily. I don't necessarily need big population. I want big population of families that have kids. So some cities, rise up above. San Francisco is interesting, but there aren't that many families in San Francisco. So it's actually very low on my radar to populate, versus like in Atlanta is a great city to start off in. And I have over 100, maybe 120 different listings all over Atlanta.
Nice.
For birthday parties. And I still have 50 or 60 to go. But I'd like to get 3 cities kind of populated and then slowly transition into maybe the sales or promotion and see if I can get some initial advertisers in there.
Right.
And almost turn myself into a salesperson, which I'm still trying to learn that aspect. And that's a deep well that I'm trying to educate myself on how to properly sell, how to present your value or your value add to the business. But eventually global. I could see this in Europe. Definitely in Europe. Because if there is a birthday party place that hosts birthday parties, or if they have a mobile venue, like there's a new one called Game Truck that will deliver mobile video games
that is huge.
Tractor trailer. It's huge.
Yeah.
And so if it's a mobile experience, that's equally. So you can search by those types of venues. Do you want a physical venue, or do you want a mobile experience? So you can sift based on a mobile or a physical venue within birthday parties as well. But to slowly try to pitch those services to those businesses to see, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? If they're not interested, I need to look at the business or look at myself. I'm not doing something right because I'm confident I can drive them a lot of business. And this type of service doesn't exist on the web right now. There is no central marketplace directory search engine for birthday party venues or mobile operators. So I'm trying my best as a solo operator to get out there and try to effectively sell it and make it in their best interest rather than, and hopefully make a little bit of money on my side to keep the operation profitable and keep its head above water.
Right. Now, hey, if you can sell onions online, I believe you can sell birthday parties.
So I hope.
So then, other cool question is, so do you own the singular version of
birthdayparty.com?
Uh-huh.
No, our friend Rick Schwartz owns birthdayparty.com. And I don't know if you remember at the conference, he made it very apparent. He made me very aware that he owns birthdayparty.com. I had to let him know, I know you own it. It's a great domain name. The way I sort of see it, he's got the A+. That's a great domain. My domain's an A or an A-, but mine's a plural. I'm showing birthday parties.
Yeah,
I am totally a birthday party. But would I like that domain? Sure. I don't know if I can afford it right now. The thing's not generating any revenue. So I need to figure out if I can properly sell advertising, which I haven't gotten there yet. I've been more in the development mode. If I can properly sell it, I've had a phone conversation with Rick saying, okay, we both know you have the domain. I'll probably be a good match for it, but he's going to want six figures for it. So now would I like to have it? Sure. But I can't go broke buying a domain. And he was, mentioning some of the partnership things. I was like, I prefer to build solo. I prefer because, I like my projects I don't like growth just for growth's sake. So if a project takes a little bit longer to grow, I give my projects that breathing room. I don't like building projects with, foot on the fuel and just growth at all cost and cutting corners. And Vidalia is a good example. I just let these things grow and I try at least steer them in good direction. Sometimes I make mistakes. Sometimes I make good decisions, but I let them grow as fast as they want to. And I just try to give them food and water and sunlight and a proper hosting environment and stand back and let them grow, but also doing wise things like paid search is a very effective lead generator for Vidalia. And it's been very good so far for birthday parties, but I'm not quite interested in doing partnerships on that. I tend to prefer, the whole solo route on these.
So then interesting because you mentioned growth. Now, I think in one of your latest tweets here in the last 2 weeks, like you had another sale that occurred from a development effort around Brevard, right?
Yeah. So Brevard this one was almost like a love letter to that city. I grew up, visiting Brevard. I still do to this day. It's in Western North Carolina, just about an hour south, 45 minutes south of Asheville.
Yeah.
And it's in like an outdoor paradise. It's all in the Western North Carolina, mountains. So it's forest, it's mountain biking, it's hiking, it's waterfalls everywhere you turn, hidden swimming holes, and just like it's like the perfect small town. And it's growing, and it's become this destination for mountain biking now on the East Coast. It is the premier destination for mountain biking. So it continues to develop this this identity around being, if you are active in the outdoors, you go to Brevard. You don't go to Asheville, you go to Brevard, that's south of Asheville. And this is where you stay if you want to stay heavy outdoors. It's interesting. If you go to Asheville, they're always promoting the outdoors and everything is down in Brevard. So everybody drives south to go down into Pisgah and go to Pisgah and DuPont.
Right.
And everything's down in Brevard. So that domain, from what I understood, somebody sold it out of their own portfolio on NameJet. And it was just a public auction for Brevard. And I knew the city. And I thought it might be a fun development project with my same designer that built birthdayparties.com for me. And so I built it, took 6 months to build it, bought the domain for roughly $11,000. And built it out, and it started getting great traffic from organic, and started meeting businesses up there. I was hoping that I could make, maybe $500 a month, $1,000 a month, something just minimal to keep it going and allow me to go up and slowly grow it. But, and I'll mention, Jessica, she was nice enough to even talk to me prior to building that. And she was wise. She gave me a warning saying, hey, it's typically, and I see most of my revenue coming in from the hotel side, and there aren't a large amount of hotels down there. I thought I might be able to, diversify the revenue from maybe fly fishing provider or guides, or maybe the real estate industry, or restaurants. Maybe restaurants are typically tough, and then maybe some of the few smaller hotels. But my sales aspects it was tough. It was tough to even convince them on, $99 a year, $50 a year.
Wow.
And at the moment where it started, where the time that I was investing in it started pulling away from birthday parties, I realized I was like, I can't do this. It's not.
I got a punt.
I got a punt. I love the site. I still love the city, and I'll still continue going up there. And I was fortunate at that point. I had developed a relationship with their Chamber of Commerce, and similar to call tracking, I kind of gave them first right of refusal. I was like, hey, they had expressed interest in the domain. They kind of kicked themselves for not knowing that it was going up for auction. And so I gave them first right of refusal and sold it to them for, what did I sell it to? $30,000, roughly, from $30,000 to them. And and that just occurred within the past couple of weeks. So it was good just to get that. And I'm kind of glad they have it. They've been operating off of explorebrevard.com, I think is what they're operating off of.
Yeah.
And so I would expect maybe at some point they'll downshift. Hopefully they will. If not, maybe they use it for email, or maybe they use it for social media or what have you.
Nice.
But yeah, so able to sell that, mainly to focus, just to stay focused on Vidalia, on onions and birthday parties. What I say, produce and parties. So I am produce. I sell produce and I promote parties. That is what I'm focusing on right now. I really don't need any other distractions.
Let me see if I can find something for you.
Yeah, so this domain industry can pull you down different paths, and it can present a lot of bright, shiny objects. And a lot of times, if you just, because I got pulled into that, trying to develop too many projects at once. But allowing myself just to have, because Vidalia is perfect, it's seasonal, and then having a birthday parties out there, where it's kind of my really they're both marathon projects, but it's especially a marathon project where I'm trying to set this foundation for this, so it properly grows, and I'm providing some sort of value to families out there that are, or caregivers that are trying to plan birthday parties for their kids, or even for their adults, or 30 or 40th or 70th birthday party, any type of celebration that they might be enjoying.
Nice. So then wrapping up, because you kind of hit on a bit of the challenges. So in terms of what you mentioned, in terms of there are many shiny different shiny objects that the main investors and developers can chase. But for our listeners that are going, hey, I think I may have this opportunity to go develop a geodomain, or to go develop an informational site, or even a service-based site, kind of like Vidalia Onions. Like, what do you believe are the greatest challenges of that sort of domain development effort?
Greatest challenges of domain development. Probably I'll tell you, some of the easiest aspects tend to be some of the hardest. Just the consistency of it, just showing up every single day.
Yeah.
To build or to develop, to add small things to the site, to but continue to build on the site, or talk to customers, or make sales calls, just to be accountable, to hold yourself accountable to these jobs day in, day out, almost like looking at domain names, because every single day I look at the expiring list. What's out there? What's interesting? More of just as an addiction now, because I've been doing it for so long, so I don't know any different. But I always just look at those every day. It's like my morning paper. I get up, I look at all the expiring domains that are expiring. Are there any opportunities out there that might be interesting for me to develop? because I still think I have room for a third project. So I'm always looking for maybe a third project out there, like key lime pies I thought might be, but it didn't
Crab
quite
claws.
match. Crab claws is another that didn't quite work out. But yeah, just the consistency and making sure before you jump into an industry, you have a level of interest, because in order to sustain that level of concentration, in my opinion, you got to have some level of interest in it. I mean, you could go after a site, a domain that, sells toilets, but do you want to sell? Some people do. Some people want to sell toilets on the internet, sell plumbing and stuff. I don't. But if you want to pursue a domain, make sure you have some level of interest in it, because it's going to be you're going to be eating and breathing that. If you really want that project to develop, because your level of interest in it will translate over to your customers. They're going to be able to tell if you're interested, you have an authentic interest in this product or service of this industry. If you're not, they're going to know from the output. When I got into Dude Ranch, I was fascinated with it. I had imposter syndrome, but I mean, who didn't want to promote a 130-year-old cool cowboy industry? And I get to go visit dude ranches and collect belt buckles. And so that was an easy one. Vidalia ended up proving me that I was interested, because I wasn't quite sure, but I had just enough a level of interest and curiosity to dig into it. And once I dug into it, I realized this is a really fascinating industry. And fortunately enough, I was able to touch on a pain point that existed there that I didn't realize existed until I truly built the business and started going down that path. So yeah, the consistency, I would say, is one. And it's tough to do, because you have to show up every single day, and you have to keep yourself accountable to show up every single day.
Right. So if you had to do it all over again, I mean, would you do anything different? Not develop, not have purchased, or purchase more,
or? I wouldn't have bought Land Survey at $26,000. I wouldn't have gotten a bidding war for that domain. I probably would have gotten more into the coding side. Although a lot of stuff is going into the no-code world now, where you just kind of use third-party applications and pay a monthly fee to use their pre-built kind of drag and drop application. But I'll tell you, the more I learn about coding, the more fascinating it is. I mean, I work so much in WordPress, so I just enjoy learning PHP and MySQL and how the database actually works, and how does PHP work, and really trying to break down the back end of WordPress and looking at a raw install and looking at all these PHP requests and how they're working on the back end. So I can hopefully, if a problem pops up, I can try to fix maybe 80% of the stuff. But if it goes beyond my level of knowledge, I like leaning on, my freelancers, because they're experts and they love doing that aspect of it. Right. So I can concentrate on sales, customer service, a little bit of web development, and then taking care of my customers. And when really when the meat of it, or the important stuff, I lean on my freelancers. They're experts and they love doing that aspect. And I enjoy working with customers and making sure I'm providing some product or service that makes their life a little bit happier.
Nice. Yeah. Well, last but not least, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners? I mean, I know we've spent probably the last 90 minutes or so going through your journey, but is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Oh, no, I got my own way. If you want to see, I mainly run my kind of top level site off askew.org. So askew.org. Okay. I think I have my Twitter link in that, but it's searchbound, SEARCHBOUND. I think I have a link on my askew.org website. And Twitter, I like Twitter a lot just from a social aspect. I'm not on Facebook anymore. But Twitter is wonderful. I've met so many amazing people, really talented folks through Twitter. I continue to be impressed with that I'm not a huge social media guy, but I really enjoy Twitter. So I'm probably on there, once a day, either scrolling or trying to post something, but mainly trying to expose domain stuff, how to maybe, if an opportunity pops up that maybe I don't have cash for, I routinely try to expose, hey, here's a domain that seems to have, like one recently was grocerybags.com. I really liked, and I don't know if it's like this around you in Austin, Alvin, if you go to Whole Foods or Publix or anywhere, they have, these cool little custom grocery bags with different images or Star Wars or produce. I was like, man, you could build a custom grocery bag business. That's a really interesting. And you could even do custom ones. If maybe if somebody wanted to upload a photograph of their family, put the photograph on the grocery bag. But I was like, it's not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but man, somebody could build that as a side, totally as a side business. And for all you know, the revenue generated from that could allow you to move on to it full time, possibly. You never know. So whenever I uncover domains like that, I love sharing them within my Twitter because it's just the opportunity is sitting there waiting for someone to grab it and develop it. And starting with a great domain name I've found is such a wonderful way to build some of these kind of these niche businesses, especially if you're a solo operator. It gives you this unfair advantage, and it gives you this kind of authenticity that's tough to get from the first from that first step, and then allows you to kind of take additional steps forward from. Then you can provide a really great product or service, and then you can take care of your customers, and then you can start building a mailing list, and then XYZ as you keep building, as you keep moving forward. Did I answer your question?
Interesting. No, that totally answers it. And so I mean, outside of that, hey, I guess with that, we're out of time, but listeners, you can catch Peter there at Searchbound on Twitter. And so, Peter, man, thank you. I can't thank you enough again, for joining us today and just sharing your entrepreneurial journey and developing domains into profitable businesses. So thank you for joining us.
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, totally. And it's to a certain extent, it's like I was sad not to have met in Asheville, but this afforded us the opportunity to chat today. So
I'll catch you there. I'll catch you there this year.
Yeah, totally. And I'm kind of sad that you won't be at NamesCon though.
Yeah, I'll be there next year. You'll be okay.
He's like, you'll sleep. Well, with that being said, listeners, thank you for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search, marketing, and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.